Last episode, we reviewed two games that were not at all what any of us expected. They were still good games, but had us picturing something else going in. That happens a lot, perhaps even too often?
Welcome to episode 291 of the Tabletop Bellhop Gaming Podcast, which we've decided to call Great Expectations, where we're going to answer a question from one of our awesome Patreon patrons who asked what we think board game publishers can do, and I guess RPG publishers as well, to better set expectations about their games.
We'll also be talking about the games that we've been playing lately, including a new to us card game from Grandpa Beck. And we're going to wrap up with two featured reviews that are games where we got exactly what we expected, if not a little more. Alhambra Family and Friends Edition from Queen Games and Beer and Bread from Capstone.
First, we should introduce ourselves. I'm Sean, your host, and with me is Deanna.
Hello to all the Bellhop boarders.
And of course, Mo, the Tabletop Bellhop himself.
I am Mo Tuzano, the Tabletop Bellhop, your cardboard concierge, helping you make your game nights better.
We like to record Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, live at twitch.tv/tabletopbellhop, and we love it when people join us in the lobby, our chat room here on Twitch.
And now, on to some housekeeping. First up, disclosure. Wherever you're watching or listening to this, any links you see are most likely affiliate links. Whenever you use one of our affiliate links, it costs you nothing extra, and it helps to support the show.
Also, many of the games we'll be talking about tonight were provided by publishers. Now, speaking of supporting the show, I'd like to point out this episode exists in part to the support of our awesome Patreon patrons, and it has been an awesome month with 3 new patrons joining us, so thank you very much for that. If you'd like to be one of that elite crew, you can do so at patreon.com/tabletopbellhop, one word.
And last up, let's talk about show notes. If you head over to our website, we have show notes, and that's where you can find links to absolutely everything that we talk about in this episode. Just head over to tabletopbellhop.com/episode 291.
A few notes for our local listeners.
All right, a week from Sunday, nestled between Christmas and New Year's, is our next pop-up board game cafe at Hidden Trail. Now, this event will be highlighting SETI from SETI from CGE, Lunar Skyline from Dead Alive Games, and premiering Whoa There Cowboy. That is the latest game from Grandpa Beck's that hasn't quite hit stores yet.
Our first event of the new year is going to be in January on the 6th, and that's going to be our second ProtoWIN Game Designer Night, again at Hidden Trail. This is a free-to-attend Proto-Spiel-style game designer night where board game designers and players can gather and playtest games. I'm really looking forward to this. We had a great turnout and a super fun night when we had our first ever ProtoWIN event back in October, and I can't wait to see how this one goes.
After that, we return to Walkerville Brewery on Thursday, January 22nd for another Brews and Board Games game night.
Now, currently, we don't have a pop-up board game cafe planned for January with Hidden Trail, but that's just because we haven't picked a date yet. So look forward to that, too. We're probably going to squeeze in a board game cafe, and we're looking to do something a little different, maybe a board game mixer style event where you'll get to play with other different local gamers.
The Tabletop Bellhop team is here to answer your gaming and game night questions. Tonight's question comes from Tabletop Bellhop Patreon patron Pax the Paladin, who asks, this question was inspired by your recent episode on games that aren't for kids despite appearances. How would you advise publishers to design boxes or components in order to set the right expectations for consumers and players?
All right, well, thanks so much for the great question, Pax, and also for being one of our Tabletop Bellhop Patreon patrons. Now, I actually picked this question to talk about today because of the 2 reviews we actually did on our last podcast last week, where we were talking about trick-taking games. Now, that episode, we reviewed Lunar Skyline from Dead Alive Games and Origin Story from Stonemaier. Now, what stuck out to me, unplanned at the time, like we didn't group those together for this purpose, but what stuck out when we were kind of done the show and talking about it and hanging out afterwards was that both of these games were very much not what we expected them to be. When we sat down to play them, they just weren't what we had in mind and completely kind of surprised us for what they were. Now, in one case, this was a bit of a disappointment, and in the other game, it was a case of a pleasant surprise. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of that. If you do want to find out which we liked more than the other or which one surprised us, just check out episode 290, Trick Takers, for yourself.
Yeah, missed expectations. It seems like it's something that's come up often. Like was referring to that kids games. Looks like kids games, but they're not. I
Hmm.
think it was called episode, and it's come up recently in a lot of conversations that we've had in real life. It feels like we've had a bunch in a row. Um, it's just something that we see often. It's definitely not a new thing at all.
Yeah, it feels like we've had a rush of them recently, and I don't know if that's just luck of the draw or something like that, or maybe I don't know, something's changed with the way people are marketing games or styles and box art or whatever it is. Like I know this goes way back. Like this is not a brand new thing for board gaming. One of the things that has changed nowadays, of course, is your ability to research and find out about games before you purchase them. Back in the day, it was a matter of going into the toy store and grabbing something on the shelf because it looked cool. And I know there are games that had advertising on the local TV channels that I wanted so badly as a kid and begged my parents for and triple highlighted and put 3 stars in the Sears catalog. Got and found out they were terrible, absolutely terrible. Every Star Wars game published before Y2K, I think. Though Return of the Jedi Battle at Sarlacc Pit, that's the exception that proves the rule. That's actually a really good game. One particular game we were actually talking about this about at breakfast the other day was Shadow Lord, a game that came out in the 80s, and it's got this like I thought it was going to be a new Hero Quest or Hero Escape or fantasy game, and it's got these Dungeons and Dragons looking characters on the cover. And then when you open it up, it's a sci-fi economic trading game with little discs and chits and looks nothing like the cover of the box.
Yeah, one of the big things that we had to deal with, especially back in the 80s, was very misleading advertisements on TV. The commercial, the rules about what was allowed to be suggested in some of these commercials was wild. I remember one of the prime examples being the game Mousetrap, which made it look like this wild and interesting, fun game, but has absolutely nothing to do with the actual way that you play the game. Although it's not just the advertising. I know one of my personal examples is a game called Ulcers. Now, this was a game, it wasn't a game that was given to me, but my family had the shelf, the cupboard of board games that we would play from time to time. And Ulcers was one that for some reason we weren't playing. And I didn't know why. It had this really interesting, fun art style, cartoonish sort of style art on the front of the box. It said from ages 9 to 99. Well, this should be fun, right? And it didn't help, admittedly, that for some reason my brain transposed some letters. So I was thinking it was uncles, not ulcers. And that's certainly, not like I had any idea what the word ulcers was as a young child, let's be honest. But we did eventually get to play it. And it is an HR management game where you are playing a take that game to try and staff your company, but there aren't enough staff members to go along. And the early version was wildly misogynistic with secretaries being all female and things like that. We had the early 60s version of it in my house. It was just, okay, this is not what I signed up for on the box cover.
Totally fair.
Yeah, you know what I was thinking about when you're talking about commercials is all those interactive VCR board games that came out in the 80s. Those never lived up to what I thought they were going to be like. They built it up as this magical interactive experience, and then you played it, and it was just, man, like the Clue VCR mystery game or the Atmosphere games, like so much buildup and excitement, and then the actual gameplay was just like a miserable, boring slog. And I know there's almost a cult-like following for the Atmosphere games. When I used to sell retro toys, those would be, if I found those, I knew I could make good money. But I played it, and I don't know. I don't see the excitement there.
Now, I do know there's a Star Trek VHS game that is popular enough that they bring it out at cons every year. I don't know if it's any good though. I just know that that's another one that people still play to this day. But yeah, and I can't help Sean was complaining about the lying in advertising, and I'm not going to get into this topic because that's a totally different topic. But I can't help but think of the current wave of AI-driven ads of products that look nothing like what you actually get. So I think we're kind of getting back to that hyperbole in advertising again, which I don't think is a good thing.
Yeah.
All right, so now we kind of talked about some games that were mismatched expectations when we were kids. Let's jump things back to the present and talk about what we think some of the things that board game publishers, RPG publishers, tabletop publishers can do to better help set player expectations so that when someone sits down to play a game, it ends up being the experience they're expecting so that they're getting what was on the box. Like they totally want to be able to sit down, you get hyped about a game, you sit down and go, yep, that's what I was hyped about. Whether then the game is good or bad is a totally different topic. Sometimes you get a game and it's exactly what you thought it was going to be, but it's not exactly what you wanted. Or sometimes you get a game and you're like, yep, that is exactly what I thought this was going to be. And no, it's still not for me. That definitely happens. But what we're talking about today is specifically what the publishers can do so that initial sit down, what happens?
I think one of the big things that that we definitely need to talk about is player counts. This is almost a universal thing, and there's a lot of different problems involved in this one. Now, one of the major drives we've seen, which is, I think, in general, a good thing since the pandemic in particular, is the drive to add solo play to a thing.
Yes.
And that's great. But I should also point out that if you have designed a solo game into your game, that's different. And that doesn't, to me, mean plays 1 to 5. That means it plays maybe 2 to 5 with a solo game as well.
Yes.
If your rule book for your solo play is a completely different rule book,
it's twice as thick.
Maybe you shouldn't call it plays 1 to 5. You know, it's again interesting ways of things that could certainly lead to different expectations. Although I suppose if you are primarily a solo player, you're probably used to that. And if you're not a solo player, you probably don't care. So maybe that's not as big a deal, but it is certainly something that we have seen change drastically since 2020.
And you're talking about variants. Often for 2-player, there's a variant. And if there is a variant, I want you to be upfront about that on the box. It's not this game plays 2 to 5. It's this game plays 3 to 5 and includes a 2-player variant. Like that is a thing too, because sometimes the 2-player variants are good. Often they are not. And I would like to know what I'm getting into.
Yeah, exactly. You want to set that expectation, right? That's exactly what we want out of this. And what I have seen a lot, and some companies are great about this, is they will note that it includes a separate solo play. Like they'll say includes solo automa designed by, and there's actually like 3 or 4 board game designers now who are famous for just designing the solo versions of games, and publishers will hire them to create a solo version of a game. And they're usually called out as a separate thing. Now, they tend to still say player count 1 to 5, but it'll say player count 1 to 5 and includes automa play or whatever like that. And I specifically enjoy ones that do that, where you can use the automa not even just to play solo, but at other player counts.
I think part of that is that's benefiting the publisher, however, because a lot of times it's solo play by Bob the Builder, and you know, Bob the Builder is a selling point, so that is why they're putting it on the box. Not to be beneficial, not to help the buyers. They just know they'll sell more because solo players like games designed by Bob the Builder.
I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say they're doing it for both purposes. They're letting players know that there's a separate solo mode, and they're including it. Now, one of the things I saw recently, actually, and it was and I don't remember the name of the game. This is not a game recommendation episode. We'll probably mention a few games as we're going, but that's not our goal here tonight. But I actually saw a game that said 1 to 5 players, and it was in a triangle in the corner of the box, so 1 to 5 players, and underneath it said best at 3. I'm like, that's awesome. I want to see that more often. And then, as Deanna said, I saw another one that said 3 to 5 player with 2-player variant. To me, that is awesome. I want to see that more. I think that is something I would love to see on the box for my games. Let me know right away what the best player count is, or at least a range. Like, even if you go plays 2 to 10, best with 3 to 4. I shouldn't have to go to Board Game Geek to find that information.
Exactly. That is exactly what I was going to say, because we can dig that information up on Board Game Geek and we can get the ideas of what people are saying it plays best at. But having a publisher include that, that's gold.
Yeah, and a lot of this isn't the stuff that the publisher just needs to wait and find out. I mean, the designers of these board games are generally designing for a specific play count or range of play counts. They know that this game is going to be better at 3 to 4 players, and they have it at 5, but it's a bit of a stretch, and they put in this variant for 2, and somebody else came along and did the solo variant. That's how these games are designed. They aren't just throwing a bunch of rules into the air and, well, look at that. The Board Game Geek people say it plays better at 3. What do you know? Yeah. No, that's not how it's going. They know this stuff.
And publishers, I get it. You want to sell as many copies of your game as possible. I understand that level of marketing. So you want to have the widest range possible to potentially reach the widest market. But I honestly think that's a bad choice. It's a bad business decision. I think you're going to do way better by targeting and marketing your game to the player count the game is the most fun at, because those players are going to have fun playing your game and tell other people. Meanwhile, the people who pick it up and are like, yeah, we have a group of 6 all the time, so we bought this game, and have a bad time, are going to stop buying your games. Like, I honestly think because 6,000 whatever new games are coming out every year, you need to put out something good that's more important than reaching more players for a first-time play.
Right. It's the long-term payoff versus the short one time you sold that one game. I'm going to come back if you meet my expectations.
Yes. Yeah. And similarly, I mean, this goes right back to the game I was talking about that advertised ages 9 to 99. Well, I'm sorry. A 9-year-old should not be playing an HR Take That game. It's just, it wasn't fun. There are, besides the fact that they wouldn't even be allowed to advertise it at this time because of components of this nowadays. But again, who is it going to actually be fun for?
Now we're talking about game boxes, so I want to focus on a specific part of the game box besides the player count, and that is the back of the box. The back of the box is what I look at to find out more about the game. You've already interested me with your cover, your name, maybe your theme, some other reason. Now I want to know more. This is my deep dive. I want you to show me the game. There are far too many game boxes out there with great artwork that don't show me what the thing looks like on the table. I want to see what the game looks like on the table. Probably, if possible, mid-game. I want to see stuff happening. I want to see cards out. I want to see things on tracks. I don't want to just see how you set it up. Or maybe at the end of the game. I also want to see all the components in play. There's a few times we've gotten a game and then you bring it home and you're like, oh, this requires like a DM screen, or this has something I totally didn't expect to be part of the game because it wasn't on the box. And then there's just the amount of information you provide and how you provide it will also give people a hint to how heavy and difficult the game is. Like if it's a simple, easy to learn game, super simple, easy to learn game with 3 steps, put all 3 steps on the back of the box with nice big examples. You do see a lot of party games do this, and I greatly appreciate it. When I flip the back of the box, it's like 1, flip a card, 2, tell a story, 3, make them guess, whatever. I'd love to see that. Now, if you have a more heavy game, I want to see a more detailed description. Let me know that there's multiple levels to this game and multiple steps.
I kind of disagree with you a little bit here. I don't really want to see the game set up and in play on the back of a box, because in most cases, it's going to be too small to give me any detail. I'd rather see a component breakdown. Here's, you get 60 meeples and 30 trees, and here's the big board you get. And because that gives me a better idea of what's actually there. Whereas if you take a shot of something like Guildmasters of Valeria, huge, big layout on the table. If you take a picture of that in play, you put that on the back of the box, you're barely going to be able to make out anything that's in there.
So that is going to give you an idea if the game takes up a heck of a lot of table room, which is something else I would love to know before setting up games.
It's true. We've talked about, could you please give me a table hog or a table space recommendation on the box? But I don't think we're going to see that coming anytime soon.
No, I don't expect that one to happen.
They need to use that back of the box real estate in an intelligent way. Like, if I flip it over and all there is like some cute art and 3 paragraphs about cool theming and nothing about actual gameplay, that is not coming home with me. I want like a clear description of the game, not just the theme of the game. Like a game about trading in the Mediterranean, that tells me nothing, right? This is a farming game. Nope, tells me nothing. Space exploration tells me nothing, right? But if it says it's a light, take that game of fast wheeling and dealing and outbidding your opponents, and that says more, you know. Or it says control your guild, build shops, manage the supply chain, or undercut your opponents and play politics to become the best trader. Like that tells me something about what I can expect from the style of gameplay. And it doesn't have to be dry. It doesn't have to expressly say this is a tableau builder with 4 stages of, whatever.
So to be honest, I wish board game publishers listed the mechanics on the games more often. I want to know if it's a deck builder or a worker placement game or engine building, or if there's take that elements. Please include that stuff. One of the things to realize is most hobby board game publishers are selling games to hobby gamers who know these terms. And for the people who don't know these terms, they're not going to probably be turned off by seeing something like deck builder. They might be curious to find out what that means.
I get that, and I agree with you, but the fact that we're not seeing on the back of the boxes, I would settle for, if they're going to be descriptive and want big, nice English sentences, just be descriptive about the game and not the theme. The gameplay and not the theme. That's it. I would settle for that. But yeah, listing the actual mechanics, like in like a BGG style, the way they do it on there, that would be sweet.
Yeah, definitely. The mechanics is definitely what I was thinking about as well. Some way to describe mechanics to us, whether it's a list of mechanics, agreed upon by Board Game Geek, or, somehow I think part of the problem is they are concerned that certain mechanics might give people the wrong idea. You say deck builder. Well, what does that mean? Is that Magic the Gathering? Well, we don't want a Magic the Gathering game. Well, it's not, but people don't necessarily know that or understand that. And so I would guess, I'm just totally guessing without ever having talked to a publisher about it, that's probably some of what's going on. Is those terms are not universally well-defined outside of niche groups like us.
And they're kind of fuzzy too, right? Like even on BGG, when you're looking at a game and it's listing all the mechanics, you're like, well, I guess technically that mechanic is in there, and it's a smidgen, it's a pinch, right? And it's like a pinch of this, a pinch of that, and you throw it all together and you have this one unique game. Breaking it down to the components that is in it doesn't always work. Like when we were talking about Origin Story with the tableau building, trick taking, that's part of why we came at it with mixed expectations, right? So,
No, 100%. I mean, Origin Story is kind of the perfect example, just because we've been talking about it recently. It's a great game. It's a fun trick taker, but it's a trick taker that has a tiny little tableau in front of you. It is not a tableau builder, I would say. And yet the descriptions of the game talking about this trick taking tableau builder where you develop your character, and no, you're actually just picking a card and throwing it down in front of you.
Yeah, but again, if you're the publisher, you don't list all the mechanics in the game. You might, but like you don't list those minor ones that are only part of it. I don't know. I would like to see more of it. Again, I think it's the same case as I was talking about with the player counts. Is like they don't want to limit their market. They're worried they're going to turn off people with big complicated terms and stuff. And again, if you get more people who are actually into deck builders that buy the game because it says deck builder and like your company and will keep buying more games for you, that's better than someone who having one person who likes Magic the Gathering style buying it and not quite being happy. That's where I think it could be a little better. But again, just some indication, not just theme. I want to know the theme. Theme matters. We've talked about this many times before on the podcast. I want to know the theme, but I also want to know the mechanics. Like, don't just tell me you're trading in the Mediterranean. Don't just tell me it's about the French Revolution. Okay, thanks. Is it about the supply chains? Is it about clothing uniforms for the troops? Like, those could both be about the French Revolution. Is it about building guillotines? Like those are all very different games, all with the same theme.
So
the theming, you can get it across in, I bet you, 3 to 5 words and your cover art, right? And anything beyond that, you're wasting your box space.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I just pulled up the Origin Story, and from the publisher, Origin Story is a 1 to 5 player competitive tableau building trick taking game played over 5 rounds. They even lead with tableau building, which again, I think is a misled expectation, because it's not really tableau building. You're just throwing down some cards in front of you in a set grid. It's a trick taking game.
I don't know. Again, that's the whole thing, that the lines are blurry. That is very much a tableau building. We're just used to playing tableau builders that are also engine builders.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's not an engine building game. I thought it was an engine building game, but that's my fault for assuming that a tableau builder is an engine builder.
Right.
Not every tableau builder is. You are building a tableau of 5 cards that you try to make interact with each other. I don't think it's a wrong definition, but I do think it set the wrong expectations.
It set the wrong expectations by the emphasis on it.
And interestingly, the mechanisms list on Board Game Geek does not include tableau building. It only includes trick taking.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure there is a tableau building mechanism, but I think
maybe there isn't.
There is. I'm pretty sure there is. I think I've seen it in other games, their listings.
And side note, we're talking about lots of different board game mechanics right now. If you go over to the tabletopbellhop.com, we have a huge list of board game mechanics. So if there's any of these terms you don't recognize, you can check that list.
And we'll drop the link in the show notes, because that's where links go.
All right, next, I want to talk about artwork. I want the art to match the style and the weight and the feel of the game. If it looks like a kid's game, people will buy it for kids. If it looks like a dry, boring Euro, it better not be a push your luck party game. The art should be tied to the game. Going back to Shadowlands, if I've got a group of 6 players sitting around a tavern and wearing armor with mugs of ale in front of them and swords at the ready and a mace on the table, it better not be a sci-fi trading game. Don't do that.
People are going to buy games that look like they're for kids, and there will be unhappy children that perhaps will be driven away from the board gaming hobby forever. I mean, don't do that. It's bad.
Yeah, especially when you get into times like this. I mean, we are recording this around the Christmas time, where kids are going to be excitedly opening up packages. And if when they open that package and find something wildly different than what is expected, there will be disappointment, and that does fall on the publisher, on the that correctly fall on the publisher for misleading people, like Disney sidekicks, for instance.
Yep.
Or another example is My Little Pony. My Little Pony. It's a fantastic game, but it is not a game for little 12-year-old girls who My Little Pony is originally aimed at.
The pony audience is a little younger than 12.
Is it? Okay.
I think it's targeted at kids younger than that. And the card game certainly wasn't. So if people pick up that game and give it to the people that the cartoon are marketed at, it's a complete miss.
With the exception being the brony crowd, who
I don't even think the brony crowd would necessarily like
that game. They're playing that game. Yeah, there was a couple stark ones. And same thing, right? Your IP should match your game. Like if you're doing a heavy Euro, you probably don't want to put a Disney license on it. Like unless you're extremely clear about it somehow. Disney Villainous is a surprisingly heavy game. And it beats out Wingspan, and it's targeted at the hobby market and the Disney fans in the hobby market, which it makes sense. But there's nothing on that box that screams to me, note, this isn't a kid's game. It just needs something. And there's a fact, I'm not a marketer. I don't know what that thing is to give you that indication that you should watch for it. And
a large bubble that says ages 14 and up, but then some younger kids might enjoy it. So that's going to throw it off too.
And then Disney Sidekicks was the most brutally hard cooperative game I've ever played. And that's going to be a target that's even younger kids. And like Sean said, the My Little Pony game, IPs should match the game.
With Disney Sidekicks, it's not just the IP. That game looked like a kid's game. Yes. I like the little pieces, the components, the color scheme. It just looked like a kid's game.
Yeah, I think one of the things,
components kind of stretch from the artwork, right? You're also your graphic design. If everything's cute, smiling things and big chunky plastic pieces, that also leads itself to making you think the game is for younger kids. At top of my head, like Reef looks like it's play school. It looks like a play school game. Though Reef, I don't think I ever had missed expectations, but man, those components look like something a toddler should be chewing on.
Yeah. Villainous, on the other hand, I think did a reasonably good job at not aiming too low. Their box art is evocative without being cartoony. And the miniatures in particular are very Art Nouveau. They are not, oh, look at the cute Gronk. And so I think that helps lead Villainous into that market and does set expectations that are more reasonable than, for example, Disney Sidekicks did.
Yeah, Villainous did a better job. I just don't think it was still perfect. Another one would be Lorcana, because Lorcana is a fairly complicated trading card game, and little kids want it because it's Disney
Lots
characters.
of cute Tinkerbell pictures. Yeah,
I suspect that was a deliberate.
Yeah,
I mean they want kids to collect the cards, regardless of whether or not they can play the game. Like again, a lot of kids collect Pokemon who don't play.
I have.
We know this very well.
Yeah, I got one of those.
So they are going for that market as well as the gaming market when it comes to something like Lorcana or Pokemon or stuff like that.
Totally fair. Now I'm going to call another one. If you have an IP, the game better feel like the IP. Jaws, great example. You feel like you're playing through Jaws. There's two parts. One part, you're going around the island and trying to save people. And then the next part, you're fighting the shark, right? Masters of Orion, the board game. Oh my God. Wow. How does that have the Moo license on it? I fully admit it's a really good sci-fi card game.
It is. It's a fun game.
It's a fun game, but it feels nothing like a 4X. There is no exploration. There's very little. There's no tech trees. It's a tableau builder with cards. And they got the names of two of the races wrong. If you're going to get an IP, you don't mess up that IP that badly. That game will never sell because it's terrible based on its name. It's perfectly fine as a sci-fi tableau building card game. It is a very good, actually, with some really interesting rules for fighting and conflict. And like, I actually really like the game, but it's not Masters of Orion.
Yeah. So another one.
Speaking of game titles, don't put certain words in your title if you're not going to make those words be in your game. The one we're kind of harping on Stonemeyer here, Story Jamie, but don't put story in your title if I'm not going to tell a story during your game. Don't say it's a role-playing game if all I'm doing is pushing cubes and moving things around and I'm not like rolling to hit or doing any of the things in a role-playing game. I'm not leveling up or getting equipment. We have episodes about some of this stuff.
Merely being a fantasy-themed game does not make something a role-playing game.
Yes. That is a big one. It has elves and dwarves. It's role-playing.
Adventure is another one of those terms that's thrown around far too often. Think real hard if there is actually any sort of like a hero's journey or something involved in your game before you describe it as an adventure.
Yes, it's an adventure game where I roll D6s and I note down pairs on a sheet of paper and I color them in. Great. The Dice Kingdoms of Valeria, I think, would be an example. Yes, I rolled red dice, so I'm fighting orcs. I'm like, okay, it's got a neat theme and it works. And I actually really like the game, but I don't feel like I'm going on an adventure.
So I'm just going to reach into the chat room here because there have been some good comments about some of the topics we've been talking about as we go along.
Okay.
People are saying, well, some companies may be scared that if it says plays best at 3, then a group of 4 won't buy it.
Exactly.
But it might play again if it plays 3 to 5 and it plays best at 3. That doesn't mean it plays badly at 4 and 5.
Right.
So that's your group is going to have to learn that sort of thing, and or maybe you just stick to games that say best at 4 if that's what your group is. That's
honestly, like if it's best at 3 and your group of 4 doesn't buy it, that might be a good thing, right? Like that's kind of what I'm and more what I'm saying. It's not even necessarily the best of 3, but like just don't make your game play 2 to 6. Make it play 3 to 5, right? Yeah. Like just don't even market to those player counts. They're like. When you go on Board Game Geek and every single person is like, man, like there's just so much downtime like this. There is a game we reviewed from, I'll call it out, though I won't because I'm totally blanking on the full name, Sushi Boat. There were cards in that game that if you were playing with 5 players, you could never complete them. They're gold cards.
Right.
There were not enough rounds in the game. We did the math.
At 5 players. It made it a bad game. And we almost reviewed it. If we didn't do the thing where we play games multiple times, we would have played that and we would have reviewed it and went, this game is a skunk.
Yeah, it's broken. because you couldn't. We did the math. It is impossible to complete the gold cards with that many players. There's just not enough rounds in the game. Just don't put 5 as a player count. If the game said 2 to 4, it'd be all good.
Yeah. Another one is we'd love it if boxes said plays best with X by X space, but you can get away with Y by Y or Y by Y minimum space. This
honestly
is tough because there are a lot of ways to set up a game, and what this may lead to is optimization issues. So the designer of the game plays this on a 3x3 table because they have a specific way that they designed the game. But normal people, when they open up the box and start laying it out, and it ends up being like 4x5 because of the way, that's a problem. So unless you take a page in the manual to tell people set it up this way for a 3x3 space.
Well, to be fair, most manuals do have that.
So
that's a pretty common page 2 part of every board game rule book. Yeah. Here is a typical setup.
Yeah, I said Sean doesn't read the rule books. You teach all the games. He doesn't know what page 2 looks like.
No, to me, that's part of what gets covered by that. Show me the game set up on the back of the box, no matter how small it is. It at least gives me an idea of how much table space I need. Heck, put some arrows with numbers, like an engineering diagram. I don't know. I would like to see that, though. I don't know the proper answer for exactly what data I would need. And some games are so much better. Like here's a pro tip. Here's a tip but it has nothing to do with expectations. I would like to see more publishers cut their boards up into separate little boards that I can place however I want.
That is exactly
the games
what I was
that do that are absolutely fantastic for it. Like they just make everything separate. Like I can puzzle fit it all together to be your big board, or I can slide things around wherever I want. Like I am sure it's a manufacturing issue why we don't get that, but I like Cowboy Bebop Space Serenade is absolutely amazing because I could fit it on a small coffee top table, or I can make it take up my whole 8x4 table if I really wanted to. No, it's not a board; it's round discs and stuff.
That we are seeing more games that have these boards that are flexible in how you set them up.
I do suspect there may be some games where the publisher or the designer is hesitant to do that because for some things it could become overwhelming. You get there's all these pieces, I don't even know where to start. Versus here's the big board and it's all set up for you. You don't get a choice. There's definitely some of that ADHD, neurodiversity, too many things are bad. That is a problem in the board game industry. There are definitely board gamers out there who can get overwhelmed by things. So I'm sure they are trying to find a balance to work that out.
That's not me. I want my too many things. The more things in the box and the more bits, the more excited I am as we open it.
It doesn't have to be a lot. Like if your board has 3 regions of play, break it out into 3 separate boards, right? Kutnahora, we're playing that. That game is long when you set it up as described, and it's made to notch. So like technically you could kind of separate the boards and put them in different spots, and you could put the mine at the top or the bottom. But like the fact that the 2 of the boards are separate, like if you just cut the mine and the top board in half, I could then maybe put the mine to the side this time because I'm on a square table or whatever. Mm-hmm. Anyway, none of that has to do with making the expectations better. So I'm going to move on. Just advertising, be honest, but sell the game and not just the theme. They're just way too often. It's just theme. The ads I see for games. You're going to be doing this awesome thing. And I'm like, but how? What are the mechanics? What am I actually doing to do the awesome? You're going to colonize Mars, okay? You're going to build a starship to go back in time to try to change history. And I'm like, okay, cool theme. But like, get that out, but then tell me more. So basically, I want the box back thing, but I want some of that in the advertising. I'm also really sick of hearing this is a better version of this. I think that's terrible marketing. It's basically saying putting down another game to boost your own game. I am just not a fan of that whatsoever.
I was thinking about Tir na Nog, the epic storytelling in Celtic mythology game, I believe is something along the lines of how the box sells it. And it is a great, interesting mathy puzzle game with some cute Celtic artwork, but it is not an epic storytelling experience.
Yeah.
And the worst part is like that should be advertised like as one of the best mathy games out there. Cause it's a really good puzzle. Like the things it is good at aren't what's getting what's doing.
And that's a shame too, because it's a good game that isn't being marketed for what it is, and then perhaps
Yes.
reaching the people that would really enjoy it. And I was thinking about it for marketing because I remember seeing some of their ad lays in like the game, one of the gaming magazines, and it was very much come play this storytelling game, have an epic storytelling experience. And I'm like, you are so missing the mark with these ads.
Yes, where you build a tableau that tells the tale of your epic journey. And I'm like, no, it's a bunch of color cards with numbers on them, and I'm doing math. Xylotar. Sorry, Bezier. Like, it's a hilarious theme. I'm amused. Though I got to say, for both of these games, theme still matters. Like, please still tell me that theme. Because I probably wouldn't have looked at either of them if I hadn't heard that. I'm sure we've had people look at Xylotar just because of the silliness of Bobby Cold Snap and his what is it, karimba synth music. The other thing I want to know is what's unique about your game, what makes it stand out. But again, not that it's a better version of. And I don't know. I don't like marketing just for marketing's sake. Like if you say something about the game, it should be part of the game. Like Sean said, like, or Deanna just said, like, give me a story. If you say you're going to tell an epic story, let me tell an epic story. If you're going to call a game an epic world building adventure, but your game plays in half an hour, that's not going to be epic anything. No, you haven't created the next Catan or the next Magic the Gathering. And I don't want to say play out the story of the fall of the Roman civilization when all I'm doing is managing resources and collecting sets of cards.
Roman bingo.
Yeah, Roman. There's a good one.
I think it's a fail on a publisher's part if the only way they can describe their game is by comparing it to other games.
Yeah.
If the only thing they can say is it's the next Catan, then they're just failing.
Yeah.
And please don't use by gamers for gamers. We get it. like I hate that term.
Yeah. Xylotar to me is a big one. And Tirnanog is as well. Tirnanog is just complete missed expectation on my part. I wanted a Celtic story game and I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I kind of hate the game as a result. I have to say, sorry, Mark, that one did wrong by me. But the marketing behind Xylotar is just weird because none of the marketing has anything to do with the game. It's a good game. It's not my particular because of the bidding. I'm not a huge fan.
Yeah.
But it's a good trick-taking game. And the Xylotar theme is fun, but it's horrible marketing because it's not giving you anything about the game at all. There's this epic story and all this wonderful, all this, I can tell you the history of this dumb polar bear, but it doesn't matter because that doesn't help anything.
Yeah.
Well, I think they knew how over the top and absolutely stupid it was. I mean, that's kind of the point. And then they show up at all the cons.
About it, so I think the marketing worked. But
and they showed up at all the cons with the giant Xylotar, the life-size Xylotar that you can play and stuff. I'm like, I think they knew what they were doing there.
I know it's truth in advertising. It's going to be a thing forever. Just like I said, try to actually tell me what I should actually be expecting. And like I said, if you say something's in the game, it better be in the game.
There, you know what? Xylotar didn't tick me off because at no point did I think I was getting a game about playing a polar bear trying to run from the cops.
Very true.
That's true.
True. Very true.
I'm like,
didn't actually expect that.
Right?
Yeah, no, and that's my thing.
As goofy as it was.
Yeah, like Tirnanog pissed me off because I did not get what I was sold. Whereas Xylotar annoyed me because the marketing had nothing to do with the game, and I knew it had nothing to do with the game.
Right.
And that's the difference between those two missed expectation games, I think. So one of the things I talked about earlier and is just sort of mechanics. If you've got, we talked about putting mechanics on the box, but also don't put things on there that aren't, or don't oversell, back to origin story, tableau building trick taker. Well, no, it's a trick taker and there's a tableau in front of you. It's again, the importance of things matters, how you're describing those mechanics matters to me. And if I want a tableau builder, I'm probably not going to want origin story, even though again, we like the game. Origin story is a fun game, but there are tableau builders out there that really do it well. And origin story isn't that. It's a good trick taker.
Another one for me that I really, I debate with people online about this one a lot. It's a pet peeve of mine. It's a hill I'll at least fight a little bit on, is game length. The important thing to note, and I put this in our newsletter before and I've talked about it, is the game length listed on the game box includes playtime only, not setup, not set takedown, not any of the other stuff. And a lot of people don't realize how much time they waste not actually playing the game they're playing. We took out timers. I started checking it on our phone. I started paying more attention on our game nights to how long we are actually playing a game from it's turn 1, I'm taking my first action, to, oh, Sean won. And the game boxes aren't that far off. The thing is, what I would love to see in publishers, I want more publishers to do this, is list the game time by the number of players. Like, it's usually you're going to be 15 minutes per player, 20 minutes per player, 30 minutes per player, an hour per player. That is going to be way more accurate than 40 to 60 minutes because player count has a huge impact on game time, usually more than anything else. I want to know that. I want to know that if I'm sitting down to play this game and it says an hour in the box, but that doesn't mean with a full player count. And then suddenly it takes 3, that's a problem, especially as someone who hosts public play game nights where people want to get multiple games in or when we're on a time limit. Please list player counts by player times by number of players.
Somebody
also,
does that.
I would love it.
What did we play recently that they did have it? Was it How to Save a World? Because somebody's doing that. Yeah.
It's not uncommon, but I want it to be always.
So there is,
especially if you got the wide range. Like if your game plays 3 or 4, you can probably list like a range of whatever, an hour to hour and a half, and I can probably figure it out.
So one of the issues you run into is outliers. So again, the ones that the exceptions that prove the rule. Please Don't Burn My Village plays faster at 5 than it does at 2.
Yes,
which is wild.
Significantly.
That broke my brain
because you burn through that deck. And so there are games like that where it wouldn't. One thing I think that could change the market, and hey, if anyone from Board Game Geek is listening to this show, if you put a field for play length by player onto your game page entry and encouraged, users to add that information in there, that might help push the designers and the publishers into realizing that that's important. So anyone from Board Game Geek who listens,
Crashorama, you out there? Used to be a regular watcher. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah. And like the other thing too is I would love to see setup time. I think they don't include it because they're worried about scaring people away.
They don't want to scare you away. Yeah.
I think they don't want to scare you, but I would love to see it. Like if
no one would ever buy T-Witches.
Well, that's it, right? Like I think it would scare people away. But I kind of wish I knew that. Like if 15 minutes setup, 20-minute playtime, and that's probably a game I'm not going to enjoy, or I'm going to realize that's a game we're going to play multiple times in a row or something. I don't know. I would like to see that. I would love to also see takedown time, but I don't expect that to actually happen. I would love to find like a publisher who had the bravery to put something like that in the box and be honest about it. You do sometimes see it for games that have no setup time, right? Where they're like 0 setup time, shuffle the deck and go. So I do appreciate it when I do see that, but I that is one of the things I would like to see, something about game length or at least expand the game time, like put game time 3 hours, 2-hour playtime or something, right? To account for all the other stuff. Like there's a lot of downtime in game. I think we did a whole episode about this, didn't we? Where we were talking about like the time
Scoring
between rounds when you're setting up things and you have to reshuffle decks and clear markets and all that. I'm pretty sure we did that on an episode of like making the most of your game night or something like that.
If it's between rounds, it's part of the game, and they better be counting it in the game time.
That should be. I agree, but like sometimes you're not counting for that. You're not expecting it.
And see, this goes to when I was talking about what I want to see on the back of box covers. If you've got that full breakdown of all the components on that back of your box, if you see 6 decks of cards on the back of your box, you're going to be doing a little bit of setup and shuffling there.
Yeah.
15 different kinds of wooden meeple. Okay, well, there's going to be some sorting and some setting things up. Right from that, right? Looking at that. Whereas if you just see the way it's set up, you may not necessarily be able to tell how much effort went into setting that up versus throwing it down on the table and handing things out to people.
If I see a game that says 0 setup, just open the box and play, I probably don't want it.
So it's going to scare people away for a different reason. I think even just seeing the game set up, you can usually tell that like, oh, that's going to be complicated or that's going to be fiddly, though that's not always accurate. But again, I want to see the game set up. I really do. Plus, there's just like Deanna and I talk about this all the time, especially when someone pitches us to review a game. We open it up and go, that looks good. That looks like a Euro. That looks like our kind of game. That looks like a cube pusher.
Mhm.
Oh, look, there's lots of tracks. Like there's things we get excited about. Or you see it and you're like, oh, that looks like a tableau builder. Look at all those decks of cards. Or you look at it and you're like, oh, that looks like a dueling card game. We're not a big fan of dueling card games. So to me, there's something that there's like a visceral reaction to a game set up on a table that, again, your game should look like what it's going to be. I should be able to look at it and go, oh, that looks like a dry crusty Euro. It's very beige. I want it, right? Because it has that effect on us.
I'll go to an interesting one. I was actually just checking because I couldn't remember the name initially, but Marrakesh. So I went to the Queen Games page for Marrakesh, and they've got parts of the game. So the game is fully set up, but there are parts of it. They never show you just how big that game actually is. And that's actually the one that I was thinking of when I thought of you could break that up into separate parts and it would terrify people because there are just too many different things to move around and what's the best place to put them and how do you actually want to set up your table versus this and that. Like Marrakesh, if you just had a full list of all the stuff you get in that box, you immediately know it's going to take some time to set up. You immediately know it's a heavy Euro game, and you can figure out pretty fast that it's going to take up a big hunk of space.
Well, that one's kind of interesting that you called out that specifically because Queen Games knew it was a problem and put out the Marrakesh Essential Edition that takes up 1/3 the amount of space as the original and has separate boards that you can move around. So they actually did what we were talking about to help save that. All right. I got one more I want to bring up, and that is very important to our industry. If you were selling to hobby gamers, if you're not selling to the generic person on the street, which are the people who aren't going to be listening to this podcast. So if they're selling to you, you as a publisher want your Board Game Geek entry to be accurate as possible. Now, I know sometimes they're added by fans or the distributor adds it or the publisher might or the designer might add it or whatever. Whoever added it, go in and check the info and make sure it's complete and it's accurate. Provide as much information as possible. Make sure the game's listed in the right categories, as Sean brought up earlier. Include more than just the back of the box. Like in the description by publisher, way too many Board Game Geek entries. All it is boom, here's the back of the box. Put more. Start listing more information. You have your audience that's on that page is looking for information. They're deep diving. Your hardcore fans, your alpha gamers, whatever you want to call them, are there to find out more about the game or they wouldn't be on the Board Game Geek page. It was on the hotness. What's this game about? Oh, it's a game about invading Mars where you're going to spend multiple years trying to make Mars the best place possible. Okay. Is it a tableau builder? Is there war? Is it cooperative? Is it competitive? Like maybe you put that in the back of your box. Again, we're saying you shouldn't do more than that. But now give me the info. Here's Board Game Geek. Here's your audience. Here's the game buyers, the people who are going to take this game home and show it to local gamers. Give them all the info you can. Give everything you possibly can. Include lots of pictures. Here's where, if you couldn't fit them on the back of the box, show every single component.
I cannot fathom publishers that don't go in and at the very minimum and ensure that the info is correct, that they're in the right category, that the blurbs is there's not a bunch of typos and it cuts off weird somewhere. Like just it's shocking how many times I go to a BGG entry and it is inaccurate, like just on basic factual information. And if you're the publisher, how are you not going in and doing that? Like,
right.
How are you just leave it to fans to put your thing up on BGG? No, that is not the correct answer if you are a publisher of board games.
Yeah, Board Game Geek is not Wikipedia. You can modify your own entries to make sure that they are correct. One thing, and this is something I've mentioned in the past, but it does matter to the industry. It matters to all of the media and events people and people who want to talk about your game. You should always have a head straight on, perfectly square picture of the box art. And even if it's not on Board Game Geek, it should be, but it doesn't have to be. But somewhere in your marketing, in your website, in your Board Game Geek entries, somewhere there should be a straight on flat square picture of the front of your box for easy recognition. Isometric pictures have no use at all.
We see all the marketing material. So this stuff exists. All they have to do is go enter it on Board Game Geek. That's the part that kills me.
Or have it up on your webpage.
Or have it on your webpage. Because there have been a number of times where I have gone to grab a board box cover for our review. And I go to Board Game Geek first, and maybe it's an isometric view. Like, okay, fine, I'll go over to the publisher website. Nope. Still isometric. Where I go around and there just are not pictures. I Google the game, randomly trying to find it. And at best, I might find someone else who has done what I usually end up doing and going and doing perspective correction on an isometric game so that I can get graphics I can use.
I haven't done it in a while, but I used to scan box tops.
Yeah.
But I wasn't even talking about that. I just meant the information in general, not just the pictures. Like this stuff they write it up. It's in press releases. There's good, catchy little blurbs about their games and images and component lists and all that stuff. We see them in the retailer and the media press sheets, but that information is not always getting entered into Board Game Geek, which I think is just crazy.
Heck, upload your press kit. Upload your press kit to Board Game Geek. Give me your actual press release. Heck, that description should be the press release. Press releases usually do include the theme and what mechanics and what make the game stand out. Those are what we love to see, and that's where we actually can find out about games. And this stuff's, I don't know, it's important. You don't want people playing your game expecting one thing and getting something else. Sure, there are pleasant surprises. Our last 2 weeks reviews are great examples of that. But I think there are far more often disappointments than there are pleasant surprises. I would say overall, when my expectations aren't met by a game, when I sit down and it's completely different than I expected, it's not a good thing. And even when it ends up being a pleasant surprise, it's still not a good thing. There's a negative feeling there. There's a negative reaction, a negative emotion of, well, this isn't what I wanted. Okay, it's fun, but it still wasn't what I wanted.
All right, so what about folks in the lobby? Again, we've got a couple other things here. Ryan is mentioning games that are named like they're part of a series, but are never expanded. Now, I know part of that is things like games that just don't take off the way they wanted to. And there's nothing we can do. If you really want to get a 4-game series out there, but nobody buys the first one, that one is that's tough to overcome.
Oh, I will add to that too. Be very mixed messaging, and I'm going to call out Daily Magic Games here. Somehow, I never had this problem. To me, and I think it's because I played 2 very distinct Valeria games fairly close together, so I know that all Valeria games are unique and different. But for someone new to the hobby or someone who's just discovering Daily Magic Games, it looks like Valeria has more expansions than Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. There's all these Valeria games, and where do you start, and which is the first one to buy, and which is the core game, and what do I do with this? That's not good for you. Now, Daily Magic actually realized this, and they have now stopped putting Valeria in their titles, which is kind of unique. So if you ever come out and play our copy of, what is it? It's not Courtesans.
Castellans?
What is the name of the Castellans? You come out and play our copy of Castellans of Valeria that very clearly says Castellans of Valeria. You will never see that anywhere else because we have a pre-release copy and they dropped Valeria. It now just says Castellans in big words. And in the little bottom corner, it's got a Valeria game, which is awesome. I think that's perfect. That's what they need to do. Guild Academies is not Guild Academies of Valeria anymore. It's just Guild Academies of Valeria game.
It's
I
cool
think
to
that's
set
important.
It's cool to set it all in a shared universe, but they don't have shared gameplay or mechanics. They're very different games, right? So
and I know that's currently happening with Grand Gamers Guild, our previous sponsor with the Artemis games. A lot of people think Artemis Project and Artemis Odyssey are tied together in more than the same theme.
I thought that until you told me the one was a retheme of something else. I was like, I thought they were expansions or in a series.
Right. Ryan's calling out legacy as a term that is occasionally misused. I don't think that one's too bad, thankfully. But I think there's a whole lot of different things that legacy could mean. Sometimes you're going to be tearing up cards and putting on stickers. Sometimes you're just going to be playing a series of games.
So to me, legacy anymore means what I do in game 1 might affect game 10. Like my decisions in one game impact my next. That's to me is a legacy game. I don't think you need to destroy anything in a legacy game for it to be a legacy game, but it has to be more so like legacy and campaign are almost interchangeable for me. It just seems really weird calling like a city building game a campaign game to me, because campaign to me means adventure and fantasy. And again, don't put campaign game in your game if you play unrelated scenarios that have nothing to do with each other. But that's a rant I've had a couple times on a couple different episodes.
Yep. We've done that. We can cross that one off the list.
You can't get all Humpty Dumpty with your words, guys. Come on.
Yes.
Words matter. All right. Well, there you have some ideas we came up with that we would love to see publishers use to better publish games that play as you would expect them to once they hit the table. Ways to limit surprises and potential bad experiences through having mixed expectations.
So you folk listening out there in your cars, on your podcatchers, watching us on YouTube, what would you add? Is there something you would like to see publishers start doing? Or give us an example of something that people do right, that publishers nail it, or a publisher that's great at this that you would like to see more people do. What's the example that others should follow?
Wherever you're listening, leave us a comment, reply, send a DM, or better yet, post something over on our Discord at discord.tabletopbellhop.com.
Welcome to the Bellhop's Tabletop, where we talk about the games we've been playing lately.
So last Friday, Deanna and I took a trip up to Chatham, Ontario. We were there to pick up an early Christmas gift, which was actually a couple of beer advent calendars from the Red Barn Brewery. We were only supposed to buy one, but then we got there and we tried one of the beers in there and decided we needed two of them. But while trying out Red Barn's latest seasonal brews, we did play a few games, and thematically, I packed beer and bread because, well, it's a game about brewing beer and we're in a brewery, and that always amuses me. This is a 2-player Euro who we got from Capstone Games. Now, we are reviewing this one later, so what I do want to call out is that our first play on Friday, as well as at least one play before, maybe every play we had played up till that point, we were playing extreme. The first play of any game you play is going to be extreme. You will mess something up no matter how hard you try and how many rules you read. That's one of our laws. Well, it ends up we did screw this one up. Now, we might have played it right the first time. There was enough time in between. I'm not certain.
I don't think
so. This game has multi-use cards. One of the uses is to harvest resources. What we were playing incorrectly is we played the card, took the resources, done. What you're supposed to do is make a stack. So you play the first card, fine, you collect the resources, but then you play the next one into that stack. You take all the resources on that card, but also the matching resources on previous cards you played to harvest. Also, if you harvest more than you can hold, you have to offer the excess to your opponents. Now, that I think we did get right the first time. It just didn't come up in other games we played.
Yeah. And it's neat because it's not like you have water, you have wheat, and you're going to get, water on the first card, wheat on the second card, and also get water. No, it's only if it also lines up with the previous resource. And they all kind of, when you play them out properly, they line up really neat. And like being able to build up sort of a harvest engine, it's just for the one round because you wipe them every round. It's really neat. Like, I love the way that plays out. Playing the game by the actual rules is more fun. Who knew?
The one thing I'd say, because I got a quick experience of it as well, is I think that the knowledge of this game, like the more you've played this game, the better you know what cards are out there. Even if you don't know specifically, getting to get a feel for what might come up or what might not come up is definitely a benefit in this game versus just playing it blind.
Yep. Now, we played properly, and it was much better. And I liked the game even more than before. And I liked it before, so that's actually saying quite a bit. Like, we are going to be reviewing this later. It's going to be positive, and it was already going to be positive, and now it's just more positive. Now, the other thing we played was Decorum from Floodgate Games. Now, we have talked about this one on the show. Actually, I'm pretty sure we've already done a full review, and we'll probably throw a link to the episode in the show notes. This is the cooperative game of passive-aggressive cohabitation that is basically a logic puzzle where you're trying to decorate a house, but you refuse to talk to your partners about your actual preferences. We raved about it before. It's still really good, though the game is almost impossible if you misinterpret one of the requirements, as we learned on Friday.
Yeah, that was my fault. I backed us into an impossible corner by misreading one of the cards. And I mean, if you do that, it can easily break a scenario and make it totally unwinnable. And I just kept going, this doesn't make sense. Like, as you go further into the game, you're not supposed to communicate, right? There's limited communication.
Yep.
But as you get further in the game, as you are sucking at it and it keeps going more and more rounds, you get to say, hey, buddy, I want you to do exactly this one thing.
Yeah.
And Mo was telling me something that I was like, that conflicts what I think I need to do. How could that possibly be possible? And I couldn't figure it out. Well, you know how it's possible? I was reading the card wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Yes, when it says all items in the room must be X, that doesn't apply to the color the room is painted, only the items or objects in the room.
And I know better, but it just, my brain we were in one of the later scenarios where there was a lot of different rules. Like as you go further, the game gets more complex. So it's like this, and also this, but only this, but also this. And I misread one of them and I misinterpreted it. Like my brain just read it as it means this.
And it was funny because like your first move of the first turn of the game, I think was based on your misinterpretation. It's like the first thing you did, I'm like, wow, you just ruined everything in your first play. And I changed it back and you're like, no, that doesn't work. And I'm like, well, it has to. Well, and then that was like the fight for the whole game.
I don't think that's what it was, because at the very beginning, I know I needed half of the house to be cool colors and half of the house to be warm colors. And I did change a paint right away to try and make that be right. I don't think that wasn't the mess up, but anyways, you can break the game and it gets less fun then. And you can't go back and replay the scenario really once you know what you need to do. It's just ruined, right? So
yeah, unfortunately, but there's 20 scenarios just for 2-player, and then there's more for more players. So the only way I would replay this one is if I didn't know which one it was somehow. Like somehow it was randomized, but I don't think that would work. I'd recognize the characters. Anyway, still recommend Decorum. We're trying to play it because I kind of forgot about it. Sorry, Floodgate. We have a copy of a 2-player only expansion that has a 2-player campaign about moving out. And I don't know exactly what it changes, but like you're loading a car as well as your house. I don't know. The problem is this game has some legacy elements. There are envelopes you unlock once you get far enough in the 2-player campaign in the base box. Well, the problem is the expansion might use some of that content, and we haven't unlocked it yet. So I want to play through the base game at least to get everything unlocked, so that if we do start the expansion, we're not like, what's this about this thing I've never heard of before?
It's honestly, I'm like, this is excellent. We have an excuse for why we need to play Decorum more. I am okay with this. The expansion is a smaller box, and it ended up somewhere wacky when we were moving games, and I completely got overlooked.
Next up, something brand new hotness here. Not even available in stores. Latest card game from Grandpa Beck. We have talked about Grandpa Beck many times so far. Very impressed by all of Grandpa Beck's games we played. Very family-friendly, light-ish weight card games with enough there to actually keep hobby gamers' interest. This new game is called Whoa There, Cowboy. And this, to me, is Liar's Dice or Meyer, if you know that game, with cards. This is a hand-shedding game. Cards are numbered 1 to 7. You're starting by counting up. Lead player plays any number of cards the same number. Next player has to play either more of that same number, more cards of the same number, or play a higher card. Once you get to 7, it swaps. Now you're counting down. Get back to 1, you start going back up, and you're just going up and down and up and down and up and down, trying to shed your hand. If you shed your hand, you get 20 points, but then you draw a new hand to 7 cards. You're not out. You just keep playing. Now here's the trick. Every single card played in this game is played face down, and you are strongly encouraged to lie your ass off. You are also forced to bluff if you don't have a valid play. If it's at 5 and it's going up and all your hands is 1, 2s, and 3s, you better say you're playing a 6 or 3 7s or 2 5s. After anyone, though, has played any number of cards, any other player at the table can say, "Whoa there, cowboy," and the active player has to reveal their cards. If the accuser's right and they were BSing people, they get 10 points. If they're wrong, the accused gets to give them a card. Now, when you're caught bluffing, if you're the one bluffing, you get caught, you got to pick up all those cards that you just played and add a card from the deck, making your hand bigger. Play it until the first player voids their hand after the deck has run out once, and then the game is over. Player with the most points wins. That is pretty much a full teach of Whoa There Cowboy.
It's quick and simple and surprisingly fun, which basically describes all of the Grandpa Beck games that we've tried out.
So at this point, we only played once. We sat down, we played one full game. 3 rounds is recommended for a full game, and it was fun. Dead simple to learn and teach. Plays really quick. What amused me is there was this like emergent gameplay where like we were playing it like a slapping game. Like everyone was just playing their cards super quick and it was flying around the table. And I think that's just, you don't want to give that appearance. You have to think. You don't want to give the, okay, it's a 6, because then everyone's just gonna, whoa there, cowboy you. Though I admit I did that a couple times when I was telling the truth, just hoping someone would call me out. So maybe that's part of the game too.
Yeah, it definitely did. Once we had played around the table a couple times, it just kept going a little faster and a little faster and a little faster. People also were like, I just want to put this thing down and I want it to keep going. I don't want you to talk to me about it. Let's go.
I think this one's going to be a big hit at our local public play events. It plays up to 6 players. It's good for a bigger group. There's almost no setup time. This also I think is going to be a really popular one with my uncle's farmhouse. If you listen to our episode back in like early September where we talked about playing games with my what do you call it? Whatever, extended family. There's some very competitive players there at my aunt. My aunt and her sister in particular, I think, are going to love this game.
And again, like I said, that's the Grandpa Beck games that we've tried. It's like you can bring these to your family that does not play hobby games. Anyone that is into traditional card games is going to very quickly pick this up and have fun with it.
All right. Next up, Friends and Family edition of Alhambra, which people seem to be calling the compact edition of Alhambra. In particular, we wanted to sit down and play this with all of the mini expansions or variants or whatever you want to call them that come with this version. We did talk about this one before. We are reviewing this one tonight, so I'm just going to keep this short. Base game is Alhambra. It's Alhambra. It's the same Alhambra that's been out since 2003 in a smaller box, cheaper, better price point, slightly less components. Expansions are all expansions, all parts of other expansions that were released over the years, which is kind of unique. We like them all, but they made the game longer, like significantly. One of the highlights of Alhambra is how quick it plays. Well, that kind of falls apart a bit. With 3 players, it added about half an hour to the game, though there was a bit of learning curve learning the new modules. I actually really appreciated these additions, and while I've been a fan of Alhambra, I don't know if I got into it right at 2003, but like I got it fairly soon after it coming out.
I like Alhambra. I don't love it. I like it. It's a good game. But once you added all these expansions in and it got longer and a little bit chunkier, I was like, oh, now that is a game that I'm like, let's get it back to the table. It kicked it up that notch for me that I was like, that's a happy thing.
So right there's a shining example of why this is a good edition of Alhambra to pick up. When you're like, yeah, I like Alhambra, but now I'm excited to play Alhambra again. Right there. That's all you need to know.
Yep.
Then just earlier today, Beer and Bread. Played it after breakfast at one of our local places we really enjoy. If anyone's from the Windsor area, check out Edda's Greekless Eatery, and I recommend the Meat Lover Casserole as long as you don't have any heart problems and don't want to live too long. Played that with Sean this morning, but we're going to review it. Is there anything you want to say here about this one, or do you just want to move on to the review?
No, I think we're going to cover that in the review. So that's what we've been playing. What about you? Yeah, let us know what you've been playing. Drop by our Discord at discord.tabletopbellhop.com, where we've got a section you can talk about that's just for talking about what you've been playing lately. Beer and Bread is a 2-player only game where 2 villages face off in the yeasty traditions of brewing beer and baking bread, which is done through the use of multi-use cards and 2 different forms of card drafting.
So Beer and Bread comes from Deep Print Games and was originally published in North American English back in 2022 by Pegasus Spiel, but was then later picked up and re-released in 2023 by Capstone Games, who is the current North American publisher and who we have to thank for hooking us up with a promotional copy. Now, this game was designed by Scott Alms, who is probably best known for his work on the Tiny Epic series of games. And it features artwork from the rather prolific Michael Menzel.
This is a 2-player only Euro that plays out pretty quickly. While your first game may take you an hour, it just gets quicker with experience. Our games usually go for about 45 minutes, and that's when we're sitting there casually playing with drinks and snacks. But I'm pretty sure with more focus, we could be done in about 30 minutes.
Now, component quality here is excellent, with a long fold-out board with great graphic design that not only fits the theme with 2 villages each on either side of a river, but also works very well with the mechanics of the game. The cards have clear text and iconography, the rulebook is well laid out, and the resources are wood with unique colors and shapes for each. There's also a wooden round tracker and a windmill first player marker. You get in the box for a small box 2-player game. There's a lot of cards and wood here, but do note that the board does take up quite a bit of space.
Yeah, unfortunately, this one's not going to fit on a small round coffee shop table like Deanna and I like for our 2-player games when we're out for date nights. You may need a table for 4 if planning on playing beer and bread, well out for food. Now, this brewing and baking theme game is played over 6 rounds. Each round represents a year, and your years rotate between fruitful and dry, starting with fruitful and ending with dry. At the end of the final year, what you're going to do is you're going to score all the bread you baked and then all your beer you brewed, but you only get the lowest out of those 2 totals. So whatever you didn't do as well in, you're going to score.
Each card in Beer and Bread can be used 3 ways. They can be used to collect resources. They can be used as recipes that will get completed with those resources, or they can be played as upgrade cards, which are going to unlock various bonuses.
Now, when a card is played to harvest and collect resources, you not only get the stuff shown on top of the card, but you also get to collect any matching resources from other cards you have also harvested that round. All resources you collect need to be stored, and if you can't fit them, you must offer your excess to your opponent. Resources in Beer and Bread are component limited. If they run out, you are out of luck.
Now, completing recipes is the main way to score points in Beer and Bread, but you can only store 1 of each recipe type on your board, unless you unlock more storage through upgrades. Now, there are 3 levels of each commodity, 3 types of beer and 3 types of bread, and each has a price point range. And the ones with the best points, of course, require the more resources, either in volume or the rarer resources that there are less of in the game.
Whenever you take the clean and upgrade action, you get to remove any recipes that you've completed, and you just place them face down off the side in a scoring pile. And you also get to tuck a card under your side of the board, which, depending on where you tuck it and what the card is, that's going to unlock modifiers for the various actions or give you some endgame scoring.
Now, during fruitful years, the fields are filled with resources, and players are dealt a new hand of 5 cards. The player with the windmill chooses 1 card to play and how to use that card. Then their opponent does the same. Then players swap hands. This continues until each player takes 5 actions and all cards are played. Then the windmill passes to whoever has the least resources, or, in case of a tie, swaps.
Now, during dry years, the fields get less resources. Players pick up the cards they used to harvest from the previous year and then draw from the deck until they have a hand of 5 again. Then 3 cards are drawn from the deck and added to a market at the end of the board. Now, there's no passing cards between players during dry years, but you can play any of those cards in the market from your hand as if you were holding them, but then you have to replace it with a card from your hand. Now, at the end of dry years, cards used to harvest and all cards in the market are discarded. So remember, every bountiful, fruitful year, you're going to get a brand new hand of cards. And then the windmill passes just like it would in a fruitful year.
And then at the end of the 6th year, you add up each player's total for both beer and bread, adding in any points for upgrades played, and you find the lowest of the 2 totals and compare those scores. And the player with the lowest total wins. Ties are broken by the player with the highest score for the other good type, with the win going to the person who does not have the windmill if there's still a tie at that point.
Now, the publisher of this game, Deep Print, does have their own mobile app providing virtual score sheets for all of their games, which I guess is handy if you're really all in on Deep Print games. But I think really BG Stats is still our recommendation and has a perfectly good scoring sheet built into it. But bravo for having a way to not waste paper on score sheets in your game.
So the game does come with a nice thick pad of score sheets. So at least when you run out, you got the online app. Now, are there two things I really like in Beer and Bread? The first is that combination of two very different styles of drafting cards in one game. There's your traditional Seven Wonders, Sirens, Sushi Go style of drafting, where you get a hand of cards, you're going to keep one and pass the rest. So instead of keeping, you're actually playing it. But then there's the other phase of the game where you actually have the ability to play cards of an open market, but having to replace them with the cards in your hands. And that leads to some really fascinating and interesting and sometimes painful decision points, because anytime you trade with that market, you're now making a new card available to your opponent, plus giving away potentially what some of your hand makeup actually is.
What I love about this game is how quick it plays, but just how meaty it feels. Like when you sat down to play with Sean earlier today, you guys played through a full game in under 45 minutes, and that included a teach. So it's a quick game, but it doesn't feel short or incomplete. Like it feels like a satisfying Euro kind of game, but in that bite-sized short gameplay. And I love it for that.
Yeah, there's a lot to love about this game, and it is quick and easy to pick up. The only sort of caveat to that is the person who has played this more does have an advantage knowing what the deck composition is. So, maybe even just give you, if you have played it a lot and the person haven't, give them a chance to maybe sort through the deck and take a peek at things before you shuffle into the game might be an option.
And honestly, there's not that many different types of cards.
Correct.
It's one of those, once you've played it once or twice, you really know what's in the deck.
Yep.
Another thing I really like about Beer and Bread is what in the industry or with my gaming friends, at least here in Windsor, we used to call Nizia scoring. Since so many Rainier Nizia games use some version of it. And that's where you're like getting multiple things, but you only score whatever you have the least of. And of course, in this, it's your points or your coins for beer or bread. I love that because it forces you to not only play a balanced game, but it also really requires you to pay attention to what your opponent's doing and what they're collecting. And then that's just compounded with the end game scoring options you can get through the upgrades. Where sure, I can get a bunch of upgrades that make my bread worth a ton of points for collecting more bread. But then if I do that, I'm going to lose because I'm not spending enough time focusing on beer. And I love that interplay of mechanics.
Yeah, this game is miles away from multiplayer solitaire. Like you need to be keeping a close eye on what your opponent is up to. And then with the drafting and the passing hands back and forth, and between that and the open market, where, as you pointed out earlier, it's a real painful decision for me to have to take one of my cards from my hand and make it available to you when I dang well know it's going to serve you better than me.
And there's also, some sort of hate drafting playing on there. For instance, earlier today, you were looking for water and you had all these ways to get water when it wasn't your turn, as long as I got water. Well, I didn't need water for a few turns, so I kept it going, whereas I was not going to give you that free water that you could have taken great advantage of.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think my favorite there is when someone's storage is completely full. That's when you do something that would send over 4 resources to them and they can't take them, right?
Yeah, and another one is it really matters paying attention. Like I ended up winning the game we played earlier today, but I totally missed that Sean had a card where he had to have 2 more resources than me at the end of the game. And the last card I played, if I had collected resources, he wouldn't have got those points. Instead, I used it to give me, I think, 1 more point in bread, which I knew I didn't need anyway. So yeah, you really do have to pay attention. And to me, that's a highlight of the game. Like, yes, it's pretty common in drafting games that you need to watch what your opponent's doing and you have to be careful what you pass them to them. But it just, I don't know, it felt more important here. Sean, you were the one that commented earlier today where, like, unlike Seven Wonders, I don't really care in Seven Wonders. I get my hand. Where here, I think because it's 2-player and you're literally just passing the cards back and forth, it's a lot easier to watch what you're making available to your opponent, which cards. And you're looking at everything. You're looking at the resources they have, what upgrades they get bonus for, what cards are still in play, what cards they're harvesting that they're going to pick up next round, and so on.
Yeah, there's a large memory aspect there, even though it is only 2 players and you are seeing the cards every round, because there's 3 aspects on every card. It actually, so you've got 5 cards, but you've actually got 15 different possible uses within that hand. And so it's tough because it doesn't seem like it should be a lot, but it actually is kind of a lot to keep track of. And so it's interesting in that way.
So everyone listening, watching probably already knows Dan and I love finding new two-player games. We frequently go out on date nights where we enjoy local food and drink and play games. While I like lighter games that let us enjoy each other's company, especially if some of that drink is pints of craft beer, sometimes we just enjoy where it's just we're playing a game, and we enjoy heavier games that require that additional attention and focus, where we're challenging each other and we're trying to outplay each other, where the focus is playing games and not just socializing. And that's where Beer and Bread falls in. It's not one of those light casual, have some beers, play beer and pretzels game. This is a kind of a heavy Euro that fits in under an hour and has a small enough play space that you can play it out in public nights, but it's probably even better playing on your game table. There are lots of interesting decisions here, and things like memory and long-term planning do matter. To me, this is a two-player game for heavy game fans. And if you want that feel of a meaty Euro where you're not spending 2 or 3 hours having to sit down and play a game. Another bonus here that we hadn't mentioned yet is just how quick this game is to set up. You're just basically shuffle a deck of cards, deal 5 each, and fill a market, and you're good to go.
That's true. The setup and the put away are both just like boom, boom, in and out of the box. I love this, as I already said, for just how meaty it feels in such a short time frame. And I know you just said that it's something where we have to focus more, but I still find that this is a good game for two-player, for date night, for talking and hanging out. Like, it's not so in-depth or involved that we're not having conversations. That's or true. We're just, in the game, right? It's not a like there are, I can't think of a game right now as an example, but there are games where the only thing you were thinking about is a game, and it's really not a fun for a date night. This one is not one of those.
Yeah, this one's actually sits in a really interesting level because it's not a heavy game. It's only a 235 and as its weight, but because of the speed and quick setup and quick tear down and sort of rapid fire play, it comes out feeling a little bit heavier just because that medium weight is packed into such a quick game. And so when you get that combination of speed and medium weight, it satisfies some of those heavier weight cravings, I think.
I think I like it too that it doesn't have a surprise ending. You're getting 6 rounds. You have very set parameters, right? So, and that's part of the feeling satiated at the end.
Well, don't just take our word for it, though. Beer and Bread is currently rated a 7.3 on Board Game Geek, which is rather high for a two-player only game. It's in the top 500 strategy games and in the top 200 family games. That one seems a little odd, but sure.
Yeah.
It was also nominated for 2 Best Two-Player Game Awards, both the Golden Geek and the Board Game Quest Awards.
So my only real complaint about this game only matters because we like to bring games like this out to coffee shops and breweries and restaurants and date nights. This isn't going to matter at all if you have your own dedicated space or even if you just play at your kitchen table. The first is just how many little bits there are. I'm always worried we're going to lose something and drop something on the floor. And then just how much room the game takes up. The board is fairly long. You do need room to be able to tuck cards underneath. But it's mainly that length, how wide the board is. It's, again, not an issue if you're at home. I just think that depending on where you go, you may not be able to fit this game. This is one that I like to pack when I know we're going specific places that have larger tables.
And that makes it sound like it's a table hog, but it's not really, because there's no kitchen table anywhere where this isn't going to be fitting. It's just like small diner tables and stuff that you might, a little round coffee table shop table is not doing it. There can also be an issue with lighting. The iconography is great, but the upgrade section of the cards does have rather small text. And as we've talked about many times, sometimes we're wondering, why is the picture portion so large when you could have just made the text part a little bigger and up that font size? That would be cool. We were playing in somewhere that didn't have the best lighting, and it made it challenging for reading the text portions of the cards the last time we played this. But overall, the iconography and everything's great.
Yeah, even I was struggling to read some of the cards at a place we're playing it recently. And the other thing that, like, some of it is like you're in zone 1. It's a card that's in your hand, so it's easy to read. But sometimes I want to read that upgrade information from the other side of the table without having to ask my opponent, what's that one say again? What's that one do again? Now, as we mentioned earlier, once you get to know the cards, there's a limited number of different types of upgrades. So you kind of get used to it, and it does help with you place the upgrades in different spots that show what area they reflect on and where what they upgrade. So if it's under your harvest and I can see the wheat icon, I know that's probably either you can take wheat when there's none left, or it's you get an extra wheat when you take wheat. So if you enjoy medium weight to heavier games with multiple valid strategies, lots of options, games that reward tactical and strategic play, especially games where you need to pay attention to not only what you're doing, but what your opponent's doing, and where you're like having to make sure you're not helping your opponent more than yourself by your actions, you should love Beer and Bread. To me, this is a great 2-player only Euro that continues to be rewarding play after play. It's one of those games that, as Sean said, there's that level of system mastery. Well, that system mastery to me makes the game more enjoyable the more I play it, the more you get to know the deck of cards. Heck, it wasn't until like a game the other day that I realized, oh, there's 3 different types of bread and 3 different types of beer, and they have a point range. Yes, that's mentioned in the rule book, but you tend to forget about that stuff. I'm like, I don't know, I got a deck full of bread. Oh, there's 3 distinct types, and look, they follow a pattern. Once you start seeing that, definitely the game gets better. And some of the upgrades, I remember some upgrades the first time I played, I was like, well, when am I going to use that? One of them being like, I can store multiple things in my brewery. Well, Sean used one of those cards this afternoon to his advantage. So there's definitely a rewarding progression of play the more you play this game.
See, really, I didn't feel that, because to me, I felt like I had completely grokked the deck by like the second play. Like, I don't know. I know you and Sean seem to have differing opinions on that. If you are looking for lighter 2-player games, you should go check out our 27 quick and fun, easy to learn 2-player board games article over on the blog. And if you are curious about other date night games, I want to point out our 24 more of the best 2-player board games for date night article. We'll drop the links to both of those in the show notes.
We play and talk a lot about 2-player games, but we haven't tried them all. Is there a 2-player game you haven't heard us mention that we should check out? Let us know by emailing mo@tabletopbellhop.com. Leave a comment, reply, send us a DM, or best of all, start up a conversation on our Discord at discord.tabletopbellhop.com. Alhambra is a true classic in the hobby board game world, originally releasing in 2003 when it took home the prestigious Spiel des Jahres, German Game of the Year award. It has gone on to win many more awards and remains one of the best regarded board games ever published.
Well, Queen Games has gone and done something I think is very cool. With their latest Alhambra release, they moved the game to a smaller box, changed up the components a bit, and are now offering the game at a lower price point in a new Alhambra Family and Friends Compact Edition. Like, how often do you see games released at a lower price point, especially nowadays? This is actually one of 3 games in a new series of family and friend games, which also include Moonlight Market and Star Explorer, which we reviewed on past episodes. And I do have to thank Queen for hooking us up with all 3.
And something else cool that we have to thank them for is that they invited us to Adam 2025, which was a gaming retreat held at the Gamers Ranch outside of St. Louis. They also sent us home with copies of all 3 of their new friends and family games, and it is that copy that we are talking about tonight.
So the most important thing to know about this new, compact, cheaper version of Alhambra is that it's still Alhambra. It's the exact same game with the same cards and the same tiles and the same distribution of each that everyone has grown to love over the years. This new version of Alhambra plays the same as the original 2003 version.
Now, the next thing to know, you actually get a little bit more in this box. This version actually includes 4 modules. Now, these modules were originally part of various expansions released over the years. No, you don't get a full expansion. You just kind of get parts picked from various expansions over the years. The first is the Vizier's Favor. There's the Camps, Bazaars, and the Falconers module. So if you are getting the original game, you get a full playable copy of Alhambra and 4 modules for a lower price point. I think that's pretty cool.
Now, the lower price point does have a cost, and that's in component quality. The biggest problem here being the cardboard scoring standees. I do not know what they were thinking there. They don't go together at all well. They need to be they fall down all the time, and they're just annoying. We suggest replacing these with meeples or discs. Little wooden discs like that were in the original would be much better.
Now, another downgrade is that the individual player storage boards are gone. Instead, you have a small cardboard piece that you line your tiles up next to. To replace the scoring info from the original boards, Queen gives you a single reference card. There's also no separate scoring board, but that was eliminated in other editions of the games that have come out since the original.
Now, another loss to me is there's no bag. One of the things that Alhambra is known for is you toss all the tiles in the bag. So what you're expected to do now is shuffle them and make stacks so they're face down. What I recommend is just take the box top and toss them all in and then draw from above your head. Because losing the bag does add a bit of setup time and play time, because now you have to sort them all. Bag was nice. Toss them in a bag, pull out one at a time.
It's not necessarily a downgrade that they removed the individual player boards, because it does make it less of a table hog.
Yeah.
Finally, there's a super flimsy set of cardboard runners that you are meant to use to make a box insert. And unless you're breaking out a glue gun, we recommend just using baggies. Even once we found the proper configuration, which you did have to fiddle around to figure this out, it was like a bad puzzle. Transporting the game anywhere just leaves everything all mixed up. Anytime we take it off the shelf and do more than walk from the shelf to our table, there is a mess.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you who don't already know Alhambra or who haven't played it in a while, here's an overview. This is a tile-laying game where every player is building their own Alhambra based on the palace and fortress in Granada, Spain. Now, each turn, players will either purchase and place a tile from the market using currency cards, collecting new currency cards, or rearranging what they have already built. Now, at 2 points during the game and at 1 point at the end, players will score what they have built, with points being awarded for majorities in each of the different building types, and then each player scoring their largest wall section.
Now, interesting twist to this include 4 different colors of currency, the ability to draft more than one currency card as long as your total doesn't add up to more than 5, and the fact you get an extra turn if you overpay for a building with the exact amount of money. There are also very strict tile placement rules, and everyone gets this storage area where they can store tiles and later swap tiles in and out to rebuild their Alhambra.
Now, what we were excited to get are the 4 expansions or modules. The Vizier's Favor basically lets you buy a building between players' turns, which is great when there's a building that you really need and you're worried someone else is going to take it before your turn. You can only use your Vizier once before they go to sleep, but then you can wake them up as an action on a later turn.
The camps are a new tile type that are placed outside your Alhambra along an existing wall. They score you points, each scoring phase for each tile in a line going out from that wall, with some being corners scoring you both a row and a column.
Now, bazaars are new building types that are perfect squares with no walls that score points at the end of the game for being adjacent to buildings of 3 specific colors. Now, each bazaar features a different trio of colors and a currency color. Now, to buy one of these, you have to pay the exact amount for a face-up building of that color, but you still get your bonus action for paying exact.
And then finally, we have the falconers, and these add another set collection aspect to the game. There are 3 types of falconers, and each type has 6 different 2-color combinations on these little chits, and you purchase them with any currency card, and they must be played at the intersection of 4 tiles, where at least 2 of the buildings in that set of 4 tiles have to match the colors on the falcon that you bought.
Now, that pretty much covers everything new and interesting about Alhambra Family and Friends Compacts Edition. What you are getting here is a full and complete version of Alhambra, the classic base game that plays exactly as it has now for over 20 years, as well as 4 small expansion modules that have been released over the intervening years. And you are getting at this at a price point that's lower than it has ever been in the past.
Now, while there is some component quality loss, which does lead to a little quality of life changes, I guess, to me, it just wasn't that big a deal. I don't mind the loss of the individual storage boards at all. Smaller box is a blessing. I fight for space all the time. The insert's not the best, but so what? And well, yes, I want a bag in the box, but like I can just go steal one. Bags are pretty easy to come by. You buy a new Logitech mouse, you get one nowadays. And well, the new scoring markers, yeah, okay. I kind of hate the scoring markers, but still, what I like about this is it just took a classic game that has been around over 20 years and made it more accessible, more readily available to more people. And marketing it as a family game, I think, is brilliant. Instead of here's a heavy strategy game, this is for friends and families. This is a light 1 hour tile laying game with some interesting bidding and auction mechanics and really kind of one of the best area majority scorings that's ever been published.
They're emphasizing it as the gateway game that it is, and
Yes.
it's perfect. I love everything about this except for those scoring markers. If you replace those scoring markers with some little wooden round pieces, you're golden. A drawstring bag would be a bonus, but it's not necessary. And I actually like the way that this takes up less space and is a little more modular in how you can lay it out on a table.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, like Alhambra's good. Like it's a classic game. It's still popular. There's a reason it's still up to print. 20 years old, still stands up. We just played it last Friday, had a great time. This is one of the best tile laying games out there. The market's fascinating. The rules are unforgiving for laying, but it's one of those games you got to pay attention what your opponents are doing. So yeah, there are some slight multiplayer solitaire elements to this game, but to play well, you really need to watch, especially what colors your opponents are collecting so you can get those majorities. And this box is a great way to get into Alhambra if you haven't played. Like this is an amazing new entry point to Alhambra. I hope this gets a new generation of gamers playing the game.
Honestly, if you don't own Alhambra, there is no reason to go hunt down the other version.
No.
Just get this.
Yeah. You steal the wooden scoring markers. The other thing is the 4 expansions. I think the expansions are icing on the cake. Maybe it's enough for people who already own the original game to pick up this new version. Honestly, like just getting a smaller box was enough for me to want to actually literally put our old copy up for sale. You could just pick this up for the expansions. Heck, you could just pick this up for the expansions, toss everything else and throw them in your original game, I guess, if you still owned it.
Though, as we mentioned, these aren't the full expansions that came out for the base game. These are just one module out of 4 that came in each of those original expansions. So by not buying the full expansions, you're actually missing out on 12 other modules that you could be expanding your Alhambra play with.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that you should merge the 2 boxes and throw things out. That sounds wasteful and awful.
Well, fair. I was being a little tongue in cheek. Now, as for what the expansions add to the game, because to me that's new to us. Sorry if you've already played with these expansions for the last I don't know how many years. I like them all. The Viziers, honestly, I think is really useful at 5 and 6 players. When you play at the higher player counts, there's way too often where there's the thing you need and it's gone by the time it comes to your turn. It has that problem of, well, the market, I just flipped up the tile I need. There's no way it's getting back to me. Well, now there's a way to stop that from happening. And I think that's really powerful. I actually think that's a great expansion, and you don't need to use it. And I will admit, once you do use it, flipping that Vizier back over, you may not want to do that because like missing a turn in this game can hurt. Like you're giving up an opportunity to draft more money or to buy a building you can use.
Yeah, but it just gives you a free move at some point, basically. And it does smooth out some frustrations that can be in the larger player counts of the game.
Yeah, the fact that when using the Vizier, you do have to pay the exact amount does bother some folks, but because it does lessen that chance to use the Vizier. But I think really it as you were saying, it really does come into its own at those higher player counts. Like you might not even want to bother throwing it in at the lower player counts, but make sure you do for those 5 and 6 player games.
Now, of the 4 new expansions, I love the camps. I don't know why. It just the main reason I like it is so silly. They just look cool. Like your walls look like real defensive walls. Like you're actually putting out like this little army encampment, and it just looks aesthetically pleasing. It reinforces that theme of building a fortress. You're not just building these nice, pretty buildings. You're building a fortress with walls and armies. Plus, it's a new way to score because Alhambra was always about 2 things: majorities and those walls. Well, now you can get rewards for building long columns and rows of tiles. So I dig that. Like you literally increased the breadth of the game and gave everyone more ways to score points. And I really dig that it's not just who has the most in different colored buildings anymore when using that module.
And what I like about these little expansions is that they are modules. They're modular, and you can just pick from them. You don't have to have all 4 on or all 4 off. I tend to dig when games do that.
Yeah, I think what this really does for Alhambra, and I think why it was smart for Queen to have introduced these, even though some people may have used them in the past and not like them, I think what these 4 specific modules do is add a way to tune the game for certain people who might not like aspects of the base game. Oh, right. I don't like the downtime at higher player counts? Throw the Vizier in. Oh, there's not quite enough scoring opportunities? Throw some camps in. That's a great flexibility for this game that isn't mandatory, but allows you to tune it if there are aspects you don't like.
Yeah, I agree. It really is nice for that. And I got to say, compared to many of these modular-based expansions that we've tried over the years and reviewed, they all seem to work really well together. Like there was no reason not to just play with all 4. Just going through each one, bazaars. I'm going to bring that up. They're similar to camps. Again, new way to score. I dig that. But the other thing I like about this one, it now makes where your buildings go matter more. Because that didn't matter in the original game. Yes, you had to, okay, your walls mattered. But like, it didn't matter if my whites were next to reds, next to blues. You just put them wherever. I don't have to group the similar buildings. You can put them wherever you want. Also, there's a very important rule in Alhambra that you can't make a donut. You can't make a hole. Well, the bazaars, because they have no walls, all of them have no walls, are really good for filling gaps. And that's actually good, too, when you kind of back yourself into a corner with walls. You throw one of those down, and now you have 3 other ways you can expand out.
I like the intersection of this one and the Falcon module, because the Falcons also, you're paying attention to the colors of the building and trying to group them together to get the different Falcon tiles. And then you've got the bazaars where you're trying to line up different color buildings around them to get the maximum scoring potential. And I like that intersection, the way you have to think about it and what you need to do to make that happen.
Yeah, and like Sean said, the other thing that I found that is by adding these, you're adding more options to the game, more things, and it starts feeling Feld-like to me. I know it's a Dirk Hen game, but you start getting that point salad feel. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm really tempted to try to win this game through Falcons camps and markets, and not even worry about the majority. It's like, yeah, here, score whatever you want. I'm not going to focus on the buildings having the most. I'm just going to focus on the buildings that give me the most Falcons. And I literally think that's a valid new strategy for the game, which is like, it's so new to me for Alhambra. Now, there is a downfall to these expansions. By adding more options and more breadth to the game, you increase the decision space and thus the playtime. There's more AP in Alhambra than I'd ever seen before when we played with these expansions. In addition, the camps are more tiles. Now, the timing of Alhambra is the game ends the round you can't refill the market. Well, with more tiles in the market, that means the game's going to be longer. Guaranteed, because there's more tiles you have to go through. Note the markets don't do that, because when the markets come out, they actually don't go into the market. They get pushed to the side. But the camps definitely do. Because one of the things I actually have always liked about Alhambra is I get a medium, heavy, enjoyable Euro experience in about an hour. Well, now you're looking at more than an hour to play.
We were bleeding into an hour and a half to 2 hours, and I enjoyed it, but I was shocked at how much time it added to the game.
So yeah, if you don't own Alhambra, this is the version to go out and pick up. Like there's a reason Alhambra is still in print, still popular 20 years later. This is one of those games that appeals to a large range of gamers and game groups. This is good for family and friends, and it's good for hobby gamers who like heavier games and intellectual challenges. You might want to throw some modules in there to make it a little more complicated, but this is just a great version of Alhambra.
On the other hand, if Alhambra never appealed to you in the first place, there's nothing here we think that's going to change your mind.
So I will say, I have never been like the biggest advocate of Alhambra. I'm just like, it's good. It's not great. It's good. It's fine. And then I played it with all the expansions, and it took it up that notch for me to where I was like, this is now a fantastic game. So I did like being able to dial it up a bit. Yeah. So if you already own it, you are probably good. If you already own it and you own the expansions, you're definitely set. You know, you went all in on the big box edition. You don't need this. But If, like us, you have Alhambra and you don't have the expansions, you may be tempted just by the smaller box to free up some shelf space or the fact that it takes up a lot less room on your table.
Yeah.
Well, that's all we have to say about Alhambra Family and Friends Compact Edition. Be sure to check out our past episodes for reviews of the other games in this new, lower price point, smaller box Family and Friends series from Queen Games. Well, that was the double bell.
That means our shift's coming to an end, and we're going to have to lock the lobby doors.
Before we start locking things down, let's take a moment to thank some of our Tabletop Bellhop Patreon patrons, all of whom are awesome.
All right, first up, a big welcome and thank you to John Gross, our latest Tabletop Bellhop Patreon patron.
Hello, John. Thank you to Jeff Farbman.
Ron F., thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Papa Swick.
Brian Van Beek. Thank you, Brian.
And William Fisher, thank you. Well, we've hit the end of this podcast episode. You can always find us at tabletopbellhop.com. Be sure to subscribe on your podcatcher of choice and set us to on auto download to never miss an episode. While you're there, be sure to leave us a review.
Now, assuming you dig what we're doing, I do invite you to tip your bellhop by becoming a Patreon patron, and you get some cool bonus content for doing so. Buying us a coffee at tabletopbellhop.com/coffee. Or, I just held up a really cool looking mug here. You can let your geek flag fly with some Tabletop Bellhop merch, which you can find at tabletopbellhop.com/merch. Note, we do have a sale going on until the end of the year. If you spend at least $50 US, shipping is free in the US and Canada.
The other cool thing you can do that doesn't cost anything at all is to send us a question. We love questions. Our content is fueled by your questions. If you have a question you'd like us to answer, you can email questions@tabletopbellhop.com, or you can go to the website and click on Ask the Bellhop, or you're always welcome to reach out to us on social media, where you can find us pretty much everywhere as Tabletop Bellhop, one word.
Well, that's all for us tonight.
For the Tabletop Bellhop Gaming Podcast, I'm Sean.
I'm Deanna.
And I'm Mo.
Thank you.
And
game on.